If you're learning to draw later in life with a gap of maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 years between when you were last drawing and now, then here's 8 bits of friendly advice that I hope will help you get off to a great start. I was 50 when I started painting as an adult, so I've got some experience of what I'm talking about, which I hope will both encourage and get you off to a great start. So the first point is, don't get bogged down with, oh, I've left it too late, I should have done this sooner, the boat sailed, I'm too old for this, I don't have time left to become any good. There's just no point, because this is not true. It was easy for me to think that at 50, but I've had, well, getting close to 20 years now of very productive and very enjoyable engagement with painting and drawing. It's never too late. It's not too late if you're my age now. We start where we start, but we can always both enjoy the experience and improve. So it's not too late, but it is a great time to start. My second bit of advice is, don't try and pick up where you left off. If it's been 10, 20, 30 or more years since you last connected with expressing your creativity in some way, don't go back to that point, because that's not where you're at. Now, I'm not saying don't do a similar thing if that's what you want to do, if that's what you've dreamt of for 20, 30 years. But recognize the fact that you're not the same person that you were when you left off with your art, perhaps as a teenager or as a young adult. You've got life experience. You've got more awareness of creativity, of your creative abilities or interests, of what other people are doing, because you've doubtless in some way stayed connected with the art world and with what's happening. So your starting point now might be something that you never dreamt of doing when you were younger. And of course, if it was a struggle when you were younger, if you struggled with what you could do, and if you gave up producing art when you were younger because you got discouraged, you felt you couldn't do it, that maybe it wasn't worth it, don't underestimate the life skills that you've picked up, the self-awareness that you've picked up, and other things being able to give you an ability to achieve more quickly than you could then. But the third point is to work out where you're at now. I don't mean so much where you're at in terms of what you've been doing, but where you're at now in terms of what you would like to do. It's easy when we've spent 20 or 30 years thinking about art in some way to have now a wide range of awareness of possibilities, of subjects, of different media, of different styles, and at different times in those non-producing years to have been thinking about it and in our minds stepping through the process of maybe doing this or that. But these things can be widely diverse in terms of what they're asking and the skills they require and develop. And we can't do everything at once. We want to have our starting again as an older person experience as positive as possible. And so we want to narrow what we're trying to do at the start and really go deep and develop some good depth skills in this foundational time and period and work. And then from that, at a later stage, we'll be able to move out and start to explore roads that branch off from our starting point. But we don't have a starting point until we choose one. So what's the core art that you'd love to do? Whatever it is, that's a good place to start. Third point, really important, is to remind ourselves that drawing is a skill and we need to learn skills. And that's okay, because the whole idea of learning is that we start somewhere and we improve. It's very helpful when we hit issues to understand the process. We're not discovering whether we have the talent for drawing or not. We're learning a skill. And so the challenge is to work out the best way for me to learn the skill I want to develop, the particular drawing skills I want to develop for the particular drawing I want to do. So we need to be prepared that at times, maybe often at the start, we'll produce drawings that disappoint us. That's okay, because that's part of the learning process. If you've ever learnt the piano, you didn't expect to never hit wrong notes. You understood that they were part of the learning process. It's no different with drawing and drawings that don't turn out, or parts don't turn out the way we wanted. Which flows on to the fourth bit of advice, which is learn to see mistakes as our friends. The great thing about mistakes is that they give us focus. They give us direction on where we need to concentrate a bit more with what we're doing. And if in every drawing that we do at the start there are issues, there are problems, then we need to learn not to say, oh, why am I bothering? But to say, well, I look at this and I have now learnt something for my next drawing. Because part of seeing the problems is working out, how do I overcome it? How do I do this better? And if you're regular to my channel, you'll have heard me say this before. But the next point is, it's so important to realize, particularly at the start, and particularly when we're coming back to drawing after a long time, is to realize I'm not producing artworks. I'm learning to draw, therefore I'm doing practice exercises. And if we can accept the reality of this, that I'm not producing artworks for a long time, any more than someone who starts the piano is booking concert performances, then that takes a huge pressure off me. It takes off me the need to get every line right. If I think I'm producing an artwork, then it's easy to become focused on not making mistakes. And I end up becoming very tense, very timid in what I try. And if, let's say, a drawing is working out well, now I get scared that I'm going to spoil it and ruin the artwork. And so now I become even more tight and constrained and hesitant. This is no way to learn. We only learn by taking risks, by attempting something and realizing that, well, that wasn't the way to do it sometimes. Or just refining the skill that we need, the eye-hand coordination, the observation, the mechanics of moving our arm, or better planning before the ink hits the paper. Whatever is the cause of the problem in our drawing, working that out and then developing that from a weakness into a strength. This next point is a product of our internet age, and that's to realize that if I'm starting to learn to draw after a long gap, that I'm probably not doing a course or reading a book. I'm probably going online and finding the hundreds of thousands of how to draw channels. What I think is important at this point is to realize that not all of these are going to be as useful as each other. Some will actually teach better than others. Some may be more entertaining than others. Some may have a better production quality than others. Some may be doing things that are really interesting and to a high standard, but it actually doesn't line up with the particular art that you're wanting to learn. And that even where they tick all the boxes in some way, this channel and this channel may not be compatible in their understanding of the drawing process, and therefore the approach they teach and the exercises that they encourage you to do. Now, it may sound like you almost have to know enough before you start watching any of them to not really need to watch any of them. But I think being just aware of this issue as you watch channels, have the confidence to not presume that they're always going to know better than you and in some way set you up for what you're wanting to do. That it's a perfectly natural part of the process for you to be discerning which channels line up with you and where you want to go. And of course, after a little while of watching and trying to put them into practice, don't be afraid if you can't see any improvement in what you're doing, of thinking, well, the problem's not maybe me, the problem is that this input isn't connecting with me in the way my input needs to connect to equip me to produce the drawings that I want, and so I'll find another channel or other channels. In the same way though, don't go for too many channels at the one time. Once you find a couple of channels that have an approach that works for you and you can start to see benefits flowing into your drawing, then stay with those for as long as you feel your drawing is continued to benefit. But be aware, your drawing may develop past the place where these videos are going to be helpful for you, or you may, as you become more aware of the drawing process, change your aims, your goals, and therefore other channels may align with the shift in direction that you want to take with your drawing, and therefore those new channels may be a better match for you. Always stay in control of what input you allow to guide your drawing journey. Otherwise, you're going to end up where other people say you should go. Learning to draw is learning a skill, and that is going to be work. And just because we want to draw and we want to learn to draw doesn't mean at times we're really going to feel the work side more than the drawing side. And it can start to feel like drudgery. And if you find yourself in this place, don't make the mistake of thinking, oh, I mustn't really want to do it anyway. Instead, recognize that when we get into a routine, a rut with anything, it can start to feel monotonous, repetitive, and shake things up. And how you shake things up depends on what you're doing at the moment. If you do lots of very fast, small drawings, do something a little bit larger that you spend more time on, or vice versa. If you normally draw in pencil, try drawing with pen and accept the challenge of not being able to erase anything. If you've never tried colour, buy some cheap watercolours and just have a little splash around and play around with colour, perhaps on top of some of the line drawings you've already done. Try doing a 10-minute drawing every day in your lunch break at work. Something that changes all the ways you do things can be a really helpful way of just stimulating new interests, having new discoveries, and even shifting where we're trying to get to in our drawing. And while I did say earlier that trying to do too much in too many ways all at once generally is not a helpful way to learn a skill, it can be very helpful when our motivation needs a bit of poking around and rejuvenating. And my final point is try and find someone or some people that you can connect with in this drawing journey. Family and friends may be supportive of this endeavour, but that doesn't mean that they're going to particularly understand the challenges. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be able to feel your joys in a particularly strong way. And they're probably not going to be able to give any person-to-person advice or encouragement that's going to make a big difference to you. So try and find some people who are like you, not necessarily drawing the same way with the same materials, with the same subjects, but people expressing their, if you like, creativity graphically on paper in some way or on canvas. Maybe there's a local group you can go to that's not so much lessons as just a chance to get together and work on whatever it is you're working on at that point. Might just be once a month. Or maybe you could start a group like that in a local hall. Sometimes local councils run community groups doing things such as this. There are urban sketching groups where people get together on a regular basis and meet somewhere in a given city. But have a Google and find out what are the possibilities for you where you live. And again, don't be put off by the fact of your age or that you've just started. There is a camaraderie in working at a skill such as drawing with others who are working on the same skill. Even if they're further down the track, they still remember what it was like to be where you're at now. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. If you're just starting after decades of just procrastinating for some reason or another, I hope some of these tips at least have been helpful and encourage you that it's not too late and that you can do it and that it can be a great and productive and enjoyable experience for you. But in the end, whatever you do and however you do it, and please, however it turns out, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.